The final 4 questions are all based on the crucial element of relationships. Just how strong are they? Let's find out. This final section of the 4x4 set of 16 questions on relationships will determine whether you are connected to the most influential people pertinent to this opportunity. Importantly, with the use of OrgChart Plus political mapping tool, you will be engaging with the most important internal support individuals and teams to ensure that you have the most appropriate and timely resources and endorsements to pursue the deal to closure. Your visibility or credibility is less of a set of questions, but rather a review of what amount and type of exposure and PR you may need to give about your company and its products or services. Do we need to recover a tarnished image or change a negative opinion of key players in the decision-making hierarchy? Perhaps because of limited exposure, there is not enough knowledge in this customer about our wider offerings, and we need a quick PR campaign to correct this. So the question, are you known by the most influential people in the prospect, and are we credible enough to positively affect the decision? The objective, to secure the prospect's full awareness, aiming to each trusted advisor status, of your capabilities, potential and value already delivered at all relevant levels of influence. The criteria. 1. You are well perceived throughout the decision tree relating to this opportunity at executive, senior management and operational levels. 2. If there are reputation or awareness or education issues to address, you have implemented a plan to address them. 3. The prospect is aware of the value add of your product and service range, including past value delivered by you, both to the client and to others in their industry sector. How well do you know your prospect? Do you have a close connection with a single or several individuals such that we are able to uncover both their business and personal goals and motivators? It would establish or strengthen your credibility if you can deliver some elements of personal value beyond that represented by our company's products and services. Be sure to represent the nature of these relationships on your political map, OrgChart Plus tool, in Sales Methods. We will go there shortly. Again, the question, are you connected to a key supporter to the extent that you are aware of their and others' personal and business agendas? The objective, to gain an inside sponsor or coach by uncovering intelligence via triangulation of prospects' resources about key company and relevant individual personal goals. To determine who has what role in the decision-making process. To determine if you can help them achieve their key goals through the inherent value offered by your products and services, your personal added value, or those of your personal network. The criteria. We are very closely connected with at least one influential customer representative, and they are aware that we can help them achieve their own key aspirations and ultimately those of their organization. Okay, for this simulation we will assume that Staku, represented by Jamie Winner, have had the chance to meet Joe McGillian, and he is building a close relationship with her. She has committed to fixing a meeting for you with Josephine Southland. Note that we do not know much about SolarJet Einstein CEO Simon Winkfield and need to make some investigation into the political scene. As he is Josephine's boss, sooner or later his endorsement will be needed. We have already mapped several of the key players from SolarJet. We can see now where our relationships stand, but with very little insight as to the strength of these relationships and the power and influence enjoyed by the target customers. We will now improve that with further levels of intelligence. We can achieve this with a change of view. Here you can see how each of our own team members is related to the most significant influencers in this opportunity, without the distraction of formal hierarchical structure and title. Let's edit one of these to reflect Jamie Winner's progress. He has improved his positioning with both Josephine Southland, from target to contact, and with Joe McGillian, from contact to regular. From here we can now support our final set of 4 questions with a more realistic view of the political map in SolarJet. Note that at any time we can access a view of the political relationship only. This is known as the relationship molecule. By manoeuvring the focus of any of our virtual team members to the centre of the molecule, we can see the relative strengths of each relationship with customers pertinent to this opportunity. Note that highlighting the players on the map shows all the relevant relationship connectors and the nature of those relationships. If your answer to question 14 is positive, you should be well positioned to answer this one. It is important to establish knowledge, initially, of the most influential network of customer personnel in relation to this opportunity. Beyond that, the organisation charting can become unwieldy and may steer you in the wrong direction. Do we really know who has the power? How well are we connected? What insurance do we have? Accurate political mapping is crucial to meaningful targeting and subsequent engagement of influential players in the deal. So the question: do you understand the non-formal as well as formal decision-making process and the key influences? The objective: to determine how the decisions are influenced politically, determine whether the decision-making process is really as formal as we've been told, establish true power structure, not just in project decisions but generally, and uncover who influences whom. The criteria: 1. Political map showing you or prospect relationship and your prospect's informal relationships. 2. We are very closely connected with at least 2 influential prospect representatives. We will now take a look at the principles underpinning our relationship development strategies before we attempt to answer the last question in this final section of the 4x4 Plan to Close sales plan. By far, one of the most important elements in the qualification discipline in the Plan to Close or any sales methodology, only the value proposition enjoys equal ranking, is the relationship strategy. In recent times, more and more attention is being paid to its role in bid management and complex opportunity planning. Best practice research reveals that the strongest, most sustainable business relationships stem from a pattern of behaviour and a rigorous discipline as depicted in the sequence here. Charting or documenting the status of current and desired customer relationships, targeting the most appropriate individuals or groups, ensuring that our internal relationship allow us to develop virtual teams, and finally and crucially, adhering to fundamental principle governing business relationship behaviour, sustainable mutual value. A typical organisation chart represents structure, official hierarchy, titular nomenclature, and little else. Political mapping, on the other hand, represents decision-making influence and real lines of power, strength of relationships, frequency of interaction, and potential networking connectivity. The power of social networking phenomena like Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter are all testimonies to this contention. The Org Chart Plus tool in sales methods enables you to develop these maps. Be realistic in your targeting. Soft goals like developing intimacy are valid but hardly measurable. To gain a sense of achievement and progress, we need to be building on key steps like feeding back past value. In other words, uncover what, if any, received value they have perceived in the past. Failing that, if you know what the answer is but they are not aware, then the information should flow the other way. In each case, where it is feasible, set specific measurable objectives for meetings or even for teleconferences. Keeping track of achievement can have a far greater impact than keeping track of events. Keep a balance between delivery and receipt of personal value and business value. Just as importantly, be sure that your own internal relationships are developing at the same rate. In this way, one of the values you can offer is access to expertise in exchange for access to influence. Always be trading. It's a good habit. Research tells us that senior managers in the buying process or authoritative positions look for a combination of attributes when considering closer relationships with sales professionals, regardless of the latter's status or title. On the left here, the list depicts qualities and skills which are most admired. Whilst these may be obvious, they're not necessarily those which are the most commonly displayed during a typical long and often complex sales cycle. Clearly, demonstrating our ability to put ourselves in the shoes of the other party will be a crucial element in delivering value. Integrity will be paramount in the building of trust on the basis of stated principles or policies, whilst honesty is deemed to be displayed most through the making and keeping of promises. The apparent discord between patience and persistence is explained by one senior exec in the research as being prepared for the long run, without demonstrating frustration and corner cutting, whilst at the same time showing tenacity where the cause is not yet lost. It follows that the most respected skills are those which support empathy, and which put the principle of seeking to understand before seeking to be understood at the top of your communication strategy. Note that the list of skills here is from top to bottom in order of most highly valued, which begs the question, if so much more value is attributed to listening, observing and questioning skills, why are there so many training courses and software tools devoted to delivery? By developing our ability to listen and observe before we deliver our responses or further questions, we are far more likely to achieve the ultimate aim in all relationship development strategies, the creation of sustainable mutual value. The challenge is this. Imagine the red diagonal line to represent the perfect relationship. While such an ideal may be beyond humankind, unfortunately we allow the substantive imbalance to continue for far too long before we realise that it is having a negative impact upon even the simplest relationship. Consider the typical complex sales relationship with, say, a major customer. On the other hand, we may have allowed value to flow our way and begun to notice before the customer does. Any immediate attempt to redress here will not bring the expected gratitude, but rather a good deal of suspicion. Why didn't we spot this earlier? Why let it run for so long? If we saw it and hoped it would not be noticed, then clearly there is a lack of integrity here, and the relationship is on very rocky ground. There is no perfect relationship, of course, but the most sustainable are those which tread as closely to the straight red dotted line, the theoretically ideal relationship, over time, and do not permit imbalance to develop unnoticed. This takes us to the final question, political positioning, which will lead us to a completion of our 16 questions and attendant action plans. This final element of the last set of 4 questions should serve to illustrate where you are spending your time in front of the customer. It will help if you map the amount of time you are spending with people with influence versus others in your prospect. This is largely because we like to spend time with people who like us, of course. However, you need to target connections with higher levels of influence. Note that this does not necessarily correlate with status or title, and this is why we elaborate the power and influence elements in the Org Chart Plus political mapping tool in sales methods. Using the political web in particular will help you navigate your way through to those that matter. The question: is your virtual team positioned with the key influencers and decision makers, and are you using these relationships to win the opportunity? The objective: to leverage the network of your virtual team with prospect representatives in order to influence key decision makers and gain support for your solution. To use our personal insight to ensure your sponsor promotes you as a trusted advisor to key influencers in the decision. To use our political insight to create awareness in key influencers of your strengths and your competitors' weaknesses. The criteria: 1. Our internal sponsors are advocating our value to key decision makers. And 2. Informal influencers are lobbying people in their network with regard to the benefits of your solution. On completion of this segment, you should be in a more confident position with respect to your relationships with the most influential drivers, internally and externally, of this particular opportunity. Let's look at what this does to our plan to close in sales methods. Since we are still uncertain of all the political nuances in the SolarJet organisation, we must score this as red and plan to take appropriate action. Our objectives are tied to earlier themes, which demand that we get closer to the real influencers and uncover their personal views, values, and future needs. First, we need to get our main contacts to give us insight into where the power really lies. It follows that we will score this section red, and now quickly add our final objectives and associated tasks to complete the plan to close. This completes the plan. Now for action. Thank you for completing this simulation. Now please practice with the tools and use the plan to close plan dynamically as part of your everyday sales activity. It will pay you huge dividends.